first off, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come on here. It means a lot to us. And before I get right into introducing a couple of other individuals, I want to just keep some housekeeping rules, especially if you're not familiar with Zoom. So in the Zoom, there is a portion where if you have some questions, you can raise your hand up or you can type and enter into the chat. At this point, you're welcome to maybe message in the chat and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm from wherever you're from, because I'm sure we have people might be from all around the world, right? I want to quickly introduce someone who's very dear to me and someone who I've known for a long time now, and she is the founder of Lyceum. And without saying too much, I'll let her introduce a little bit of story about herself to everyone. So I just want to give it up for Dr. Unlearned, who will be sharing about Lyceum and as well our talk today.
Bravo.
Okay. Thank you, Mai. And for those of you who does not know Mai is the marketing director for Lyceum, and she is the reason why we can pull this together, because she's our marketing guru. So thank you for that, Mai. And welcome to our very first section of Let Us Connect Through Social Distancing Online Services. It is our tremendous honor to have all of you attending. We have a really good 45 people confirmed registration for today's section. So we're very excited. And as all of you can relate, in the past few weeks, all of us were kind of put upside down. And the world is changing so fast, and we are all, one way or the other, facing with the stress that we're dealing every single day. So Lyceum is a nonprofit social agency enterprise that really specializes in training, coaching, and consulting, focusing on serving people that want to develop themselves for the best version, to become the best version of them in the future. So we organize this out of our heart, our love, and compassion, because we know that a lot of people got distressed. And I'm very honored to have the first person who started today's section, Dr. Rob Pennington, with a very relevant topic called Speed Through Stress with 5 Steps in 15 Seconds. And Dr. Rob Pennington is my mentor in the National Speaker Association Houston Chapter Speaker Academy. And when I asked him, and he had been so generous, say, okay, let's go ahead and do this. And if you are you're just wondering who he is. Dr. Rob Pennington has been fired, has been divorced, has been depressed, remarried with 2 young stepdaughters and a spouse, with multiple sclerosis, self-employed for 40 years, and in a very highly competitive business, surviving 3 IRS audits, and was vital. His spouse of 30 years passed away in his arms. So all of these are the challenge, and this man who walked his talk with a long history of making a powerful difference in how people handle the stress. And he actually writing his book that is a very, award-winning called Find the Upside of the Downtimes. And so we very lucky to have him to be the presenter of our first workshop in the series. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Rob Pennington, and please give a round of applause for our Rob.
Thank you. Listen, I'm really excited to be here and very honored to have the opportunity to share what's made a difference in my life. So the things I'm sharing are not stuff I learned in school. It's about really learning how to give compassion to myself. And so I want to share those with you and give you some other resources and just go through some basic concepts. So let me get to my screen and we'll get this going. So the goal of this is not no stress. That's not possible. And I think a lot of times people talk about stress management as a way of like getting rid of stress, not having stress. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's honest. So I think what's true is that we can learn how to recognize our stress quicker and move through it faster. And you can learn how to do that so well that other people don't even know that you got stress. You will. You will always feel the initial reaction of things, but you can learn how to identify it faster and move through it quicker. And that's the talent I think to really develop. And that's what I want to show you what I've done that's made a difference for me. And I put it all together in Speed Through Stress in 5, 6, 15 seconds. And if you see the URL, speedthroughstress.com, there's another video there, and there's a 50-page workbook that I want to make available to everyone too, because you need to practice each of these steps. I'm going to introduce them to you, but it's the practice of them that really makes each step along the way powerful. So I guess you already know some things about managing stress. I mean, how many of you, wave your hand, have already, over the years, attended things on stress, read a book on stress, like everybody. So how many of you already know that it'd be good to exercise more? And we're not doing it, right? And how many of you know it'd be good to eat less? Eat less sugar. You are sweet enough already, of course. And there's a good book, The 40-Day Sugar Fast, when he speaks to you can get. But really, if I just talked, how many of you would feel more guilty if I just talked about exercising more and eating less this afternoon? So I'm not going to do that. I promise. We all know that might be valuable, but I want to share with you the things that I think every moment in the day can be helpful. Everything that we can make happen changes because we need to be aware of a few things. The challenge is we all have habits. Our life is full of habits. We have habits that are unconscious, that are automatic, that are habitual, that actually kind of translate. If I said something to you with a tone in my voice and a look in my eye, I could push an emotional wave through you of worry, of stress, of hurt. Our families know how to do this. And when they don't like how they're feeling, they can do things that trigger us, that push our buttons and trigger our habits. And until we're aware of it, there's nothing we can do about it. And one of the biggest bad habits, I guess I would say, that I think I have and that most people have, is we tend not to think we have anything to do with how we're feeling. But I think about that. I mean, the stress you experience, whose stress is it? So you must have something to do with it. It's just part of the process that you have to have. So one of the things I want you to be thinking about is that when does stress actually happen? And I think it might be more than you think, because I think it happens anytime, anything, or anyone isn't the way you want it. So think about this. How many times are you forced to stop and wait from a few seconds to a few minutes? So take a minute just to write into the chat. What are all the times you're forced to stop and wait from a few seconds to a few minutes that, it's kind of in your way when you're in a hurry? What are some things that most people come up with? And, the stoplight is one, grocery stores are others. All of that is part of the process that we go through every day. And I think 10 or 15 times a day, we're dealing with things that aren't the way we want it. Certainly the whole environment that we're in right now is not the way we want it. I can't go to my favorite restaurant, McHugh's Tea in Bel Air, and get hugged by Kim McHugh. There's just so much that is different right now that we have challenges dealing with it. And there's a couple of reasons that I want people to understand about why that is. So I have a certain perception of danger that I think we need to emphasize, that what stress really is, it's a physiological, emotional reaction to a mental perception of danger. And it occurs whether or not the perception is valid or accurate. I mean, the results of stress are very real. I mean, it's so real that it could kill us. CDC says that 65% of, death has a stress component to it. So the effects are very real, even if a lot of the things we fantasize and worry about are not real. And that's why it's a perception that we tend to feel. Your body doesn't know the difference between what you vividly imagine and actual reality. So for instance, if I vividly imagine I'm never going to have any more income because of the pandemic, that's terrifying. But the truth is that hasn't happened yet. What happens right now is I don't have income today. And I have other resources that I've been prepared to deal with, and that's helpful. But I do have a very fundamental belief, and that is that it's impossible for anything to happen that I can't handle. I think it's only smart to think this. Now, that may mean I may have to change, You know, I may have to get rid of my house. You know, I may have to get rid of all my toys. But if I had to, I could do that. You know, and dealing with my wife's illness, you know, we knew before we were married that she had multiple sclerosis. So I made a decision to deal with a wife who had multiple sclerosis. And one of the things we're going to be talking about is like the definition of stress. Oh, by the way, there's my book, and I recommend it. It's on Amazon, of course. So the first definition is stress is resistance to change. And, you know, anybody who's a good Star Trek fan, you're going to understand the Borg and resistance is futile. We all are dealing with changes, and this is a massive one. So the better you had been at dealing with your own resistance to all the little changes during the day, the better you'd be at dealing with this big one that's happening right now. So that's the first way to think about stress and change, and it's resistance because, you know, of a couple of reasons. But I want to have you see what happens when we are resisting change. And I've thought a lot about this, and I come up with what I call the automatic stress reaction. That means it's a habit. We don't think about it. Anytime anything or anyone is not the way we want it to be, I think this happens. We have a tendency to hold our breath, tense our muscles, have self-doubt, think negative, and become very serious. Does anybody recognize yourself in any of that? Because I think we all do it. I think we're really good at it. And I think it's our automatic reaction to anytime anything or anyone isn't the way we want it to be. So the more we're aware of it, the more we can do something about it. Now, that's a basic statement. What I'm unaware of controls me. What I become aware of, I can change. So if you assume you have something to do with how you're feeling, if you assume you have something to do with your stress, then that begins the process of you being able to do something about it. And that's kind of a positive spin on stress, which goes into the second definition of stress, as a signal a change is needed. Now, I think there are only two things that you can change. You can change the world, or you can change yourself. And sometimes changing the world is what we should do. But, you know, I can't change the way the world is today, you know, but I can change how I respond to it. And that's all the difference, because I'm actually having a lot more time spending with my garden, and I'm actually enjoying these days of, it's almost like I had a prayer that time stops so I could get a bunch of stuff done. So it's just how you think about it. But if you look at this graphic, the guy is running in one direction, but he's got worries going in another direction. That's an important insight. Worry is always about something we don't want to have happen. When we worry about something, we're worrying about something we don't want to have happen. The opposite of that is what we do want to have happen. And there's a name for it. It's called a goal. So the positive opposite of every worry is a goal. And next month in this series, I'm going to be sharing another process for how to turning a worry into an action plan towards a goal. Now, it's important to understand that the kind of a deeper definition of stress, third definition, I guess, is stress occurs whenever I'm unable to create a positive image about change in my mind. Let me let that sink in a minute. Stress occurs whenever I'm unable to create a positive image about change in my mind. So stress is always about projecting a negative image, and we are very good at projecting negative images. I think it's just our natural protective survival mechanism is to project a negative into the unknown. The problem is our body doesn't know the difference between what we vividly imagine and what's actual reality. And I think I was planted a good seed when I was growing up. I don't know how many of you had a parent read you this book, you know, about the train who thought he could. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And I think that's helped me develop some persistence in dealing with the challenges and problems in my life. Because one of the things that's important, I think this is kind of a unique view, you may not have seen this before, is just the idea that our personality is made of two things. It's made up of lessons we've learned and lessons we haven't learned. And all our stress is basically an unlearned lesson. And once you notice that and recognize that, then you can move from the automatic stress reaction to these 5 steps called the stress management response. And basically they're the opposite. So the opposite of holding your breath is breathe deeper. So everybody take a deep breath and breathe it out. And on the out breath, just relax. And that's the second step, relax completely. So right there, you've done 2 steps of the 5 in like 2 seconds. Now, relax completely really means to completely be still. And most of us have resistance to that. We think we're doing nothing. And we've been taught that doing nothing is, you know, not responsible. But, you know, if you're going to meditate, you're going to have to be still. If you're going to be creative, you're going to have to be still. And so breathing and relaxing is really important of the process. And to learn to move from self-doubt to confidence, to thinking that I can't, to thinking that I can. Henry Ford said that there are people who think they can, and there are people who think they can't, and they're all right. So anytime you're experiencing stress, it's because you think you can't. Anytime anything happens, you go, I can deal with that. Where's there any stress? So it's always about whether you think you can or think you can't. And so learning how to reassure yourself about two things. One, that you can, even if you don't know how. That's very important. I may not know how to solve the problem. That doesn't mean I can't. I just don't know how. So the more I think I could maybe figure out something, the easier it's going to be to take one step. And that's what I'll talk about next month. But the other thing you want to reassure yourself is just about your value and your worth. And let me just emphasize this. No baby is born with self-doubt. Okay? So any self-doubt any of us have about how we're going to handle the challenges of these days is just something we learned. It's not true. And yeah, I mean, I've been self-employed for 40 years, which means I've been basically unemployed for 40 years. I'm always trying to get work. So I'm back in a place where I'm looking at how to get work and how do I deal with this process. And, you know, you have to be able to balance responsibility and faith in some ways. So believing that there's impossible for anything that I can't handle, but also believe that I can take action that can move me in a more positive and productive direction that I may not have ever thought of if this circumstance hadn't happened. For instance, I've been thinking about doing this virtual reality, virtual training I'm talking about for many years. And I was just kind of, oh, it's too big a hurdle. I got to go learn tools and techniques. Well, this has actually required me to do it. And I've learned a lot about Zoom. And I did a whole day training yesterday on Zoom. And I had doubt that that would be engaging, that would be helpful, valuable, people would want to stay in. And it was great. And all that I've learned about using Zoom and using the breakouts and stuff really made that happen well. And if I didn't have all this stuff happen around us in the pandemic, I wouldn't have invested the time and the money to have learned a skill that is going to make me better forever. So I'm very grateful for that. So reassure yourself. And thinking positive is projecting the positive into the unknown. Let's see, Stephen Covey's book, Highly Effective, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He said that, you know, begin at the end. And sometimes we don't know how to get to the end, so we can't even imagine the end. But thinking positive is really about that. Looking at the goal and starting from where you are and thinking one step that would take me in the general direction of the goal. And we'll talk about that more next week. But also looking for some humor, because it's always there. And we can share that with each other, even though we've got challenges, and even though we've got unlearned lessons, and even though we've got problems that we need to deal with. And again, Speed Through Stress, the workbook. I originally wrote 5 steps, 5 pages. Well, it ended up being 50 pages because there were stories I wanted to tell. And then I created like activities and worksheets for people to practice each of these 5 steps, because just telling you these things isn't going to be enough. You know, you're going to have to actually practice breathing and learn how to relax. Really, and the paradox of that is you have to tense before you can relax. So you go through that. All that's in this workbook, and it's all free at speedthroughstress.com. And learn how to reassure yourself. You know, that may be a life lesson, and to project that positive. Each one of those things we could place through the workbook on specific application to the challenges that you have before you today. So again, the unique views of your personality is defined by lessons learned and unlearned, and all your stress is evidence of an unlearned lesson. So if you're experiencing stress, it's because you don't know how to deal with something. So how do you begin the process of educating yourself and learning how to deal with it so that you can? So just as a quick stress solution, and in one way, this is all you need to know to get through all the maze of life and all the twists and turns. It's a simple solution, very elegant. All you have to do is learn how to choose to do what you're doing while you're doing it. You know, so choose to be at home while you're having to be at home. You know, if you happen to get out and you're at the stoplight and you're late and you're worried, choose to be at the stoplight. Whatever the challenge or stress is, you know, if you have to deal with a jerk at home, then deal with a person who's difficult. Choose to have a difficult person to deal with. I found that that reduces the resistance and starts to get me out of it because I've actually chosen to do it. And as a consequence, you develop what Robert Louis Stevenson called a quiet mind. And here's just an interesting thought. Quiet minds cannot be perplexed or frightened, but go on in fortune and misfortune at their own private pace like clocks in a thunderstorm. And I think that's what we want to learn how to be, you know, to have peace of mind without needing anything or anyone to be different than they are. here's a wonderful quote by Charles Fillmore. At 94, he said, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me today. So those are the challenges of us all doing those 5 steps. So one of the things I'm here to do is to help you during this time frame to address how to apply anything that we've been talking about. And so I'm looking now for participation of what you like, what questions you have, how can we apply all the techniques of breathe, relax, reassure yourself, think positive, and look for some humor in every day of life, not just in this, frightening pandemic experience that we're having.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Pennington. And I just want to recap what I am hearing would be the 5 step, right? 5 step within the 15 seconds, which is breathe, right? Breathing is a top, right?
That breaks the trance. When you take that deep breath, you automatically take responsibility for how you're feeling. You automatically stop the unconscious stress management reaction. And that's the beginning of taking it. But usually that's not enough. You've heard the wives' tale about, take 10 breaths, there's some truth to that.
Mm-hmm.
So by doing the breath and as you practice the breathing, it leads you to more of a relaxed state. The more you practice just the relaxation techniques, and it's called the balanced relaxation that I described, of focusing on one part of the body and typically going through relaxing the whole body,
Mm-hmm.
the breathing and the relaxing take you to an even lower level of stress.
So that's the second step, right? Relax completely.
Well, again, that it requires, the word there is completely, which requires absolute stillness. Any kind of a little twitching that's going on anywhere, that's muscle tension.
Okay.
You can't have a stressful thought without a muscle responding.
So would I think when I do that breathing, or should I clear my mind so there's no thinking?
I would say do one thing at a time.
Okay.
Clearing the mind is very hard for the Western mind. We're so focused on filling it, with entertainment and all kinds of things that clearing it, emptying it sounds like, how do you do that? How do you not think? So I would say think about your breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So focus on just as simple as your breathing going in and out,
right.
in and out. And I do a little thing, I think it's in the workbook, on what's called 636. So you coordinate your breathing to your heart. And so I'm taking breath 6 heartbeats in,
Mm-hmm.
and holding my breath for 3 heartbeats and then breathing 6 heartbeats out. And what I've found, if you just do that about 10 times,
Mm-hmm.
you'll notice your heart rate starting to slow down.
Right.
So how else do we slow down our heart rate? Most of us are taking high blood pressure medication to try to slow that down. But the breathing can be a powerful tool for that. When you find your heart rate racing, that's the first thing to do. And again, if you're practicing things on a regular basis, then you've got a stronger foundation, and
Mm-hmm.
you can get back to them quicker. But even if you've done nothing, just taking some breaths and relaxing is a way of breaking the unconscious automatic reaction and gives you a sense of control, which is less stressful.
Like instead of having the thought, oh my God, what I'm going to do in the next 3 months. Oh my God, I'm losing my job. Oh my God, all of that, right?
I think it's important to notice what is frightening us.
Right. So I just clear all of that and then focus on my breathing. So that's
yeah. So all those things I think are things we don't have an answer to. So it would be good to make a list of all the things I don't have an answer to that are concern to me,
Mm-hmm.
because I need to come up with an answer. But the problem is when we don't have an answer, or it's about things that we can't control, like I couldn't control my wife's illness.
Mm-hmm.
I can't control when a client decides to cancel a training because of a virus. I can't control the weather of the world. Can't control traffic. But I can control how I am in those things.
Yes.
That's the fundamental shift that we all can practice in what I call the elementary school lessons in life. So the elementary school lessons are when the computer crashes. I know doesn't sound like an elementary lesson, but when someone isn't doing what we want them to do, when we lost something, all the little irritations all throughout the day are the small elementary school lessons in life. And however you're handling those is going to determine how you deal with the big stuff. Mm-hmm. So I think I deal with this big stuff of the pandemic better because I've been dealing with all the little stuff better. And that's where you want to practice in all the little things throughout the day that most of us are just blown away by because we get upset, we get frustrated. Most of us don't think we have anything to do with how we're feeling. So if someone says something, we get upset, they made me upset. So I've got to get them to stop before I can feel good again. Well, I don't want to give that power to anybody, you know.
Okay, we have a question from Jenny, Dr. Pennington. Thank you for the 5-step knowing what you know. I'm curious. Do you still have days that you find you can't control your emotions?
Of course.
And
I would say,
how do you deal with that?
I would say every day.
Yeah.
Okay, because that automatic stress reaction is a habit. It's automatic. So there are only a few things I can control. So listen to me about this. I can control the shape of my mouth. Okay? I can control how much air I take into my lungs. That takes some practice. I can control how much tension I carry in my muscles. That takes some practice. I can control how much I put in my mouth. That takes a lot of control. And I control my second thought, not my first thought. No matter how good, enlightened, aware you are, you're not going to control your initial reaction to things. So that's one of the things I want people to know is that even if you know all this stuff, you know, you're still going to get stressed. You're still going to get upset. You're still going to get angry. You're still going to get afraid. But if you know all this stuff, not for as long. You can learn how to recognize it quicker and breathe, relax, reassure yourself. I'll get through this. Think positive. What's the goal I want to do? And where's some humor? And then you're out of it. And you learn how to do that more and more throughout the day with all the little things in life. So that the big things like the quality of our relationships, you know, and how easy it is for us to think someone doesn't love us because they're just not doing what we think a loving person would do when what their family did might be different than what our family did. Hey, Suki, daughter.
Hello, hello, baby. So basically, you mentioned something that's really important, which is we have to be aware that we are stressed, right? So that's the first step. Because
yeah, I think that's a given.
If we're not, then and there's a slide that you show all the symptoms, like, you know, feeling tight and we breathe faster.
All those symptoms, yes.
All the symptoms, but each person has different symptoms, right?
Yes.
Like,
I went through a very intense training and I learned 30 affirmations. And every day, you know, it was 30 days and we were given a different affirmation and every day said, practice this for 21 days, practice this. And I just was overwhelmed by it. But one of them stuck with me, and it was this: I need no excuse to experience and express pure joy.
Ah, that's beautiful.
And the neat thing about that is anytime I'm not experiencing joy, anytime I'm not happy, it's because I got some excuse. I can't be happy. This person's being a jerk. I can't be happy. The weather is out there. I can't be happy. This president, whatever it is, you know. And as long as you think that, your body is listening.
Yeah.
You can't have a stressful thought without a muscle tightening. And it doesn't just stop being tight when you stop thinking it. It creates a wave of chemicals from your pituitary throughout your body and all your endocrine guys that can last, you know, 24 hours or more. So I envision myself going through the day, always having things happen that I'm going, but learning how to, so that more and more I'm in that lower baseline of stress. So that when things do happen, I don't get ill or sick as much. I used to get sick all the time when I was first self-employed, worrying about how I'm going to handle, you know, worried about not having enough money. All the time I was making money, I was worried about not making money.
Right.
So much so that I was sick.
Right.
A lot. For 10 years.
Right.
Until I started to realize, oh, that's what I'm afraid of. And what's the reality? I always have an income. I don't know how. Sometimes it's a cash flow problem. But the reality, we fear not being able to survive something.
Right.
So the question I'd ask everybody is, what in your life have you not survived?
Yeah.
Because no matter what happened, you survived it. Now, you might have been able to survive it better if you knew these 5 steps.
So again, I want to go back to that 5 steps so that our participant will, right now we have, okay, I think there are some people need to be admitted. Mike, can you help me with that? I just click admit all right now. But basically we have about 20 people in the chat room. And again, you can chat and you can send a message, but I want to recap. So the first step would be aware that you are stressed, which is some.
Yes, what I'm unaware of controls me. What I become aware of, I can change. So you do have to notice what are the symptoms of stress for you. And it's going to be different for different people. I used to not be aware of it until I was hurting in my shoulder.
For me, it's the throat. My throat got something that I know that I'm stressed. So each people have a different part in your body that react with the stress, right?
So our stress occurs.
Actually, I wanted to share that it's funny you mentioned this dipsum, but the other day, out of nowhere, my head was really hurting, and me thinking, oh my gosh, what if I have a tumor or something? So I went to the doctor, and the doctor actually, his analysis was really just to find out if I was stressed. And he came to the conclusion after all the tests that they were checking to see if I had some type of tumor. And he said that I was just overstressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that
probably wasn't what you wanted to hear.
No.
No, tell me it's something very serious, not just that I'm not dealing with my emotions.
And for your information, Mai has 2 little babies, right? One is just like a one year old. And
she's a little bit over 1 year old, and the other one is 5 years old.
5 years old, so her hands very busy, and she helped organize all of this, and running some other businesses. So that is always like woman in this, in this time of the it's very busy with all the things and all the kids staying home with her. So just imagine the pressure that all going into. So,
and I wanted to share is that the reason why it shocked me was because I think I can handle stress well, because I handled it for so many years. And it was really interesting to hear that whole pain. I never felt that kind of pain in my head before. And I thought that I could handle stress a lot more because I'm just naturally easygoing, joyful. But I've been researching and realizing I was under stress. I was just in denial.
Right. And there is a layer that can grow up in us over a period of time that can certainly cause physiological problems, that can cause behavioral problems, that can produce results in our bank account, in our body, in our relationships, in our career. And sometimes we don't see it until it's there. Right. Now, I think it starts in our thinking, which is basically 2 types of thinking, positive or negative. Mm-hmm. And however we're thinking affects how we're feeling. So positive thoughts create positive emotion, negative thoughts create negative emotion. And then I think that influences how we behave. So it either produces effective results or ineffective results by our behavior. To be aware at those subtler levels, even noticing how my behavior might be creating challenges for me beyond, most people are only aware at the physical level. But before that, before it got in your body, there was something about your behavior that wasn't productive and effective. And then there was something in your emotion that just was irritating and annoying at you. And then there was something in your thinking of having, undesirable negative projections of worry and thought. I remember when I got divorced the first time, I was thinking, who's going to ever love me? I'm never going to find anybody to love me. And I noticed, what are you thinking like that for? Why do you think that? Yeah. And so what's the opposite of worry is a goal. So, okay, I'm going to find someone to love me. And now who would that be? And what would they be like? And I even wrote down a list of all the qualities that I wanted in that person. So that it was interesting because I was seeing someone walking across the sidewalk into our offices, and I leaned over to my partner and said, I'm going to marry her. I hadn't even met her. But something inside went, yes. And we were married for, 30 years and had stressful things and had loving things. But we were both in it for our ability to grow. So I think that's an important thing that we see our purpose in a relationship and our purpose at work is to become the most effective, powerful, loving, supportive, amazing being possible. And what gets in the way is our stress. That's what gets in the way. Oh my gracious. I'm gonna mute for a second. The guys outside are mowing the yard.
Okay. So
we have another question.
Yes.
From someone else. Is Dr. Pennington there? Yes, he said, perfect. From someone, I just wanted from John in the group. So let me the question is, how can you use your method to John would like to know how to stay happy all the time.
Again, I don't think that's all the time is the problem. More of the time, most of the time, I think that's realistic. Not all the time. But just notice what just happened for me. Just right then. I heard these guys with their mowers and their air blowers, and my first reaction was, oh no, it's going to destroy this whole thing. They're not going to be able to hear me. It's going to be so loud. Am I going to have to run out there and stop them? That all hit me like that. Okay. But then I went, okay, wait a minute. Is there anything I can do? I went, oh, I can mute myself. But just to demonstrate, I have this initial reaction. So, John, I think happiness is a consequence of having dealt with the stress. So if you set your goal, I'm going to always be happy, and you run into the inevitable stresses, then you're going to feel like a failure and you're going to be unhappy. So I would rather you be happy at noticing when you were stressed. Oh, look, I noticed it. Wow, in the past, I didn't even notice it. It might have taken weeks. I may have ended up going to the doctor thinking I had a brain tumor when all I had was stress.
Okay, and I would like to offer something too. What I found is I like your fifth step, which is smile. And basically, you don't you probably underestimate the value of laughing and smiling. And actually, I'm doing a workshop on laughing techniques in some of the Vietnamese radio station next week, because I think it's so important to practice it. Because when you laugh, imagine when you laugh, you actually have 3 chemicals that helping you to really boost up the immune system. And right now, everybody wants to boost the immune system, right?
Absolutely.
So basically, serotonin, endorphin, and dopamine. So
now,
these are
for
just
most people, laughter may be too far a jump for most people. Let me just suggest this as a quick practice. I want everybody to do this. So what I want you to do is I want you to smile for 10 seconds for no reason.
Just smile. How about
Just force yourself to smile. Come on, Suki. Bigger smile. Let's see some teeth. There we go. Okay, hold that smile. Now, while you're smiling, hold the smile. While you're smiling, try to feel bad. Okay? You can't do it. That smiling actually triggers chemicals in the brain, just like laughter does it bigger. But the smiling is a simple thing. We tend to think, oh, I can't smile. I got nothing to smile about. I've got all this stuff going on. And if I went around smiling, what would people think? Oh, my gracious, So we would be unhappy and stressful and upset and sick to keep someone we don't even know from having a thought about us we wouldn't want them to think. Now,
I saw Kathy. Kathy left. Hi, from Hawaii. Hi. And I saw your smile. And when you smile, your face brightened. And just a few moments ago, it looked like a
She was being serious.
So how does it affect you after you smile like that? Do you feel better? You can unmute your mic and share your experience. Right now it's not.
No, it does. And I'm just like, a lot of time I smile. I actually does smile a lot, but lately it's been hard. But people keep thinking that I'm on drugs sometimes, because sometimes I smile too much.
It's not possible to smile too much. What it does is it heightens their awareness that they're not smiling.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're always going to try and make you feel bad, so they'll feel better about feeling bad themselves. So, let them have their own unlearned lessons. Your lesson is to demonstrate the joy that you can experience. And again, now's a good time to practice that. If you had a great reason to practice it, you don't get as many points, but when there's not a lot of reason, great time.
Yeah. And it's free. It's free chemical, rather than you take the painkiller or some antidepressant drug, right?
Absolutely. Read a book called Anatomy of an Illness. Anatomy of an Illness. And this is a guy, the author, who had ankylosing spondylitis. His body was going to be frozen in one position, standing or sitting. And he started watching Laurel and Hardy and, Three Stooges, this is in the 60s and stuff, and laughter. And he found that for deep laughter, he would get hours of pain-free sleep. And one of the things that's interesting is that, he has to give urine samples often. And so he had his wife bring apple juice one day. And in the urine sample, he put the apple juice. And so when the nurse came and looked at it, and she said, well, you have a very cloudy sample today. And he said, let me see. And he looked at it and he said, I think you're right. I think I better put it through again. And he drank it.
Oh,
just to pull a prank, Now I think the nurse got really upset because she. But, you know, yeah, we need to be the people in our lives and our families who are willing to take responsibility for how we're feeling, to learn how to recognize our stress quicker and move through it. So nobody else has to deal with our stress, just us. And then we can be more of a, you know, light in the darkness from a spiritual point of view.
Mm-hmm. So come back to that question for you, John. I think, like Dr. Pennington said, you would probably not 100% of the time, but if you practice laughing, and also another thing that is very important that I realize, I do it every day, which is to practice gratitude. Because gratitude is something that you cannot feel bad when you are grateful, right?
Absolutely.
And we have so much to be grateful for. The fact that we can all be connected on this venue, right? On this platform, and sharing some lesson we learned from Dr. Pennington is just a blessing.
There's a whole path to enlightenment by just being grateful. Being grateful for the lessons, being grateful for the challenges, because every one of them makes you a better person. I mean, I am so much more of a person as a result of the challenges of dealing with my wife's illness. I've learned so much more compassion. You know, I've learned so much more patience. I've learned my own ignorance and arrogance that pops up and causes pain to other people. And I probably wouldn't have learned that without, you know, that was a serious, obviously life-threatening illness. So all of us need to be practicing gratefulness for the challenges of every day, because I think the little trick in that is it actually helps you discover how to get through those challenges quicker and faster.
Yes. And thank you, Ji and Leung and Dr. Pennington. There's a few more questions, so I just wanted to share it out in the chat that was sent as well. So someone sent and asked that, how would you deal with stress when there's just too much work? I guess I can relate to that too, is where you feel like there's deadlines, there's people relying on you, just everything you need to get done.
All right, so how many of you have more work to get done than you can get done? Everybody has more work than you can get done.
Yeah.
So, okay, so when is it going to happen that you get it all done? Never.
Never.
Okay, so hear me about this. You are going to die with stuff not done. Okay,
yeah, right.
It's not true what my mother thinks, that, you know, she can't die, she got stuff to do. So it's you like that, Mike? So there's always going to be stuff to get done. The question is priorities. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed with the priorities at work, the conversation you need to have is with your boss about what the priorities you think they are, and see what they align with what your boss thinks they are. If you do one-on-ones on a regular basis, go to your boss prepared with, here's the list of stuff I'm working on, and here's the priorities I think they are. Because it's not your job to determine your priorities, it's your boss's job. And they may not know that. You know,
okay, so I think Kathy Lam would like to share some, make a comment about your elders' parents. Would you please unmute? And
Yeah, so I just like, you know, my parents came here as a refugee, like a lot of our Vietnamese, and then everybody too. But I think it's just like with this COVID-19, like we're so worried they're isolated by themselves at home. But I think they have been managing with life for so long with all the adversity that they face. They just kind of like, you know, it is a stress that I don't get to see you guys, but it's not as bad as you all worry about us. So I think, you know, for them to leave the country earlier at an age that, you know, at very young, and now they go through life with all their challenge. I just want to share the stress level that we feel for them is different than what they themselves feel.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I'm grateful that my mother lives with me. That would be more stressful if, you know, she was by herself somewhere. So I'm grateful she's here. We do spend a lot of time chatting with others. And, you know, my nephew and his wife came and sat outside our kitchen window and talked to us through the window. And so now I have evidence that I live in an old folks home. Now notice the humor. Notice the humor.
Right. And you can find that joy everywhere. I even found the joy in, you know, cleaning my window and see you know, some birds outside.
How symbolic.
And oh my goodness, she's flying, and she has so beautiful color. I never noticed before. So now I just noticed. So when you notice around you, there are a whole bunch of things that you appreciate, and you found, I think it's the eyes of a child. The child got excited easily, right? We not. I said, no,
and sorry, I think we had someone ask a question. Dr. Rena, please unmute and you can ask your question.
It was more like a statement. So Dr. Pennington, thank you for all of this. It's amazing. You said something that really resonated with me, and it was knowing your worth, knowing what you value, because I'm finding so many people, especially in this monotony of being in isolation or trying to juggle. I don't like the word balance. It's prioritizing, like you said.
Yeah.
It's the juggling of home and work and children, and still being isolated and trying to be innovative and creative at the same time, that people are somehow losing who they are as well. And they're comparing themselves to society, like, oh, they can do it and I can't. Why are they successful and I'm not?
Self-doubt.
Yes, it's that imposter syndrome and everything like that. And it's amazing that you brought that up, because a lot of people, you talked about, the psychological aspect of it. And that is an important piece. So thank you for sharing that.
I think self-doubt is at the foundation of all our stress.
right.
Because again, if you think you can, there isn't any stress. It's all about whether we think I can't or can. And that's a statement I believe about myself. And so I just believe it's impossible. That I don't have lessons in my life that I shouldn't have. I don't believe that I have lessons in my life that I can't learn. Again, I may need to change. I may need help, but I can change and I can get help.
And by the way, Dr. Skelton is the speaker for the next section. Yeah.
Yes,
Bravo.
right.
Bravo.
She's going
That's
the
we'll share
Good plug. Good plug.
communication.
Now, I wanted to kind of address one other thing, just because I think it's important. I'm going to share my screen again. And what I want to share about this thing is because I don't think people read it right. I think most people read it, when I have the courage to change the things I can, when I know the wisdom between having the courage to change it, then I'll get serenity. That's not what this says. This says you start with serenity. And you don't even have to create it. You just have to receive it. So I'm just saying, the source of life, make me serene. Me be open. I'm going to accept your serenity. And from that, then I can accept the things I cannot change. Then I have the courage to change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference. It's not the other way around. And I just think that a lot of people forget that. And so again, just to give you more information, the speedthroughstress.com and also kiwilive.com. If you go in and enter stress, I've got a whole bunch of material there that I can make available to you to help you through this time.
Would it be possible to have your slide, Dr. Pennington?
Oh, sure. I'll provide a PDF of that. Yeah.
Right. So if any would like to have, or we can go ahead and send it out just, for your.
But there's that and a lot more on those links.
This is wonderful. We didn't know that we have.
Let me just show you. I'm going to share one more thing so that you can see.
And everything. Great.
Yeah. Now, where did it go? This is where you go to the Kiwi Live. And so I've got a worksheet that you can work with. I've got the PDF of my whole workbook there. There's a video of me talking about when I got shot in the center of my chest. There's a video about conflict, how to end the majority of conflict in 3 questions. A video on feeling loved is more important than being right. My link to my book on Amazon, Find the Upside. I have an e-magazine on Speed Through Stress that's available. So all of that is through that link, kiwilive.com. Just put in stress and it takes you to my stuff.
And you make all
the
these available for free.
Yeah, all free.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Pennington. And someone just asked about the recording. Yes, if you like, we can send the recording of this webinar.
Sure.
This presentation to you. Right, Mike? Like we will send.
Because we need the repetition.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned this stuff through the hard way. None of this I learned in school. What my PhD did is help me learn how to use a library. it helped me learn how to learn. So what I learned through this was, because I don't like stress and I don't like conflict. And so having tools and techniques that make a difference for me is really what I've, been sharing a lot over the last few decades. So I don't have any doubt about its value, folks.
And also, in order to practice, I think we just need to continue. If you want to stay connected, we have Let's Connect through social distancing Facebook group, and Mike can send out the link how to add to be added. And we already have a group of all the people who want to be connected through our social distancing. And I believe that next week I will go live in terms of how do you do a 7-day challenge on how to practice gratitude, and there will be some winning prize if you do that. And I think practice gratitude would be one of the key important thing that you can do for yourself. It's very simple, but as soon as you build it, it becomes a habit. Nothing can stop you to find joys in even the darkest day. Like I can share my personal story. I lost my mom and my dad within 6 weeks from each other. And they are the two most important in my life. So how did I deal with the sadness? Because you cannot avoid it. It is the loss, right? The loss, the grief. I have to suffer that. But throughout that all experience, I was able to really anchor on my blessing, which is I have my sister and brother around. I know that my dad will be happy to meet my mom in heaven. Like he loved her so much that he want to be with her and things like that. And I anchor on those thoughts. I went through that. And we someday, all of us laugh. We basically laugh. And at the funeral, everybody look at us like crazy. Like, why these children, they lost their parents and they laugh.
Because you were celebrating.
Exactly. And so it really in your mind. But in order to practice, you need, so I would encourage all of you joining us in the Facebook group called Let's Connect Through Social Distancing for Higher Purpose. And then I will go live for 7 days with 7 challenges. Those who finish the challenge, we will have a prize so that we make ourselves to practice.
And I know that some people might have to leave. So before you leave, if you didn't register through Eventbrite, please leave your email address in the chat. Yes. I'd be more than happy to make sure I double check. And we will be sending out an email with all the links to Dr. Pennington's website, as well as anything else that could help everybody, as well as a link to invite everyone to join the Let's Connect Through Social Distancing, which we're using the lines because right now we have a lot of time, but our goal is to really connect and continue on so that we can all practice all of the things that we're learning as well too. So I know we have about 4 more minutes before we end, because we said it's about an hour. Anyone who wants to stay back, please, you're welcome, because I think we are staying back for 10 minutes or so if you want to personally have a chat with Dr. Pennington. But if you have to go, we want to respect your time. And we thank you so much for taking the time to be with us for today. And our next event, which you heard from one of our speakers, which I'm very excited about because I have 2 children at home, which is calming the chaos, how to communicate with your children. That will be at the same time, 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and 2 p.m. Pacific Time. That's coming up this Sunday. You can use it.
This coming Sunday. Mm-hmm.
Exact same Zoom link as well too. Basically the same ID, the same password to enter into the Zoom link. If you know of other people who would find it useful, especially if you work, I know that Suki is the founder of, Autism in Mind. And so she actually runs a foundation organization dealing with autistic children and their parents. And that's a lot of, I can just imagine what they're going through right now, staying home, right? Yeah. With their kids as well too. So, if you have parents that you want to share and send out for our Sunday, that could help them as well too. And if you guys need anything, we're here. So please send us an email. Okay.
And Dr. Skelton is here. Do you want to say a few words about the upcoming workshop on Sunday?
Okay, well, I'm put on the spot. That's amazing. No, no, it's fine. No, I would like, okay, so I'll just put it this way. Even if you don't have children, I'm going to be presenting some communication techniques that there's common pitfalls that we have been communicating with people, with our relationships, especially with our children. And you're going to understand basically in this session, your child's behavior, how to communicate based on certain situations. Like I said, the pitfalls and just becoming more present and calming the white noise and not create, within your white space, don't create that white noise, and how to create a calmer home. And it's even helpful, like I said, even if you don't have kids, we're going to even be talking about spouses. And that's amazing during this, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think we're about 2 minutes from 5 o'clock Central Time, and I want to respect for your time. So I just want to say a few words to thank Dr. Pennington. Like every time I have known him since I signed up for the Speaker Academy for the National Speaker Association, and he has been so helpful. Every time I meet with him, I learn something, and it's a lifelong learning spirit that really motivates me. And
all of us.
Yeah, and in order, he just started this kind of Zoom thing like right during the COVID-19 period, right? And he established a weekly section that all of us can go together, and he would mentor us. And he just learned it, and he showed us. So that's the way that he learned so quickly. And I learned a lot from you, Dr. Pennington, and I really want to appreciate on behalf of all the participants. Thank you for giving us. And I think we have a jackpot today, because we not just have your presentation, we have the whole worksheet on the website and everything. So let me see if I can share the screen to show his slide. Okay, how do I share right here? As you can tell that, do you see the, okay, so in the screen, it does have Amazon, the workbook, speedthroughthread.com, and drrobspeaks.com. So thank you so much for your, and for those of you who can continue and who want to continue, you can stay for a few, like 10 more minutes. And for those of you that can leave, we just wish that when we send you some evaluation form, please let us know how helpful it is. And is there some topic? We are putting together the May series. April series is done and is being delivered in the upcoming weeks. But we are working on the May series. So any topic that you're interested in, please let us know. All right. And thank you so much for being here.